How is it going, guys? And welcome back to another video over here on YouTube. Today, I'm going to go into great length and depth about the question of whether or not you should pursue a career as a professional poker player in 2020. Now, if you're new to this channel or you don't know who I am, my name is Fernando. I'm also playing under the handle JNandez87, and I am a professional poker player since 2010. So 10 years in the makings, so to speak. So I think I have some authority when it comes to speaking about this topic and this subject. I've been playing poker since 2005 and actually been making money ever since then from poker, but then turned professional in 2010. Actually, as I'm thinking of it, it was in 2011, but 2010 was an on-off year, so to speak. Anyway, I play PLO for a living, Pot Limit Omaha. But whatever I'm going to share is also going to apply for any other format that might be profitable in 2020. It could be MTTs, no limit hold'em. It could be NL cash games, live poker as well as other variations such as sit and goes or short deck. I mean, whatever is out there could be pursued and will be applicable for the general thoughts I'm going to bring up today. First of all, should you try to become a professional poker player in 2020 to begin with? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Let's start with the good stuff, basically. So the biggest advantage is probably the one you're already thinking of, which is the freedom aspect. And yes, it is true. Being a professional poker player, you are experiencing levels of freedom that are unimaginable to a lot of people that are living in a 9-to-5 job, basically. Now, of course, if you have a great career in a 9-to-5, you probably also experience probably not the level of freedom, but maybe financial success that is beyond the financial success you might be experiencing in poker, especially these days. But more about that later. But the level of freedom is really defined by the fact that you have no boss. Even if you have an own company, like myself, these days I do run a training company called PLO Mastermind, link in the description. And we are working with a team of about 10 people. Although I don't have a boss, I do have a lot of responsibility in order to enable these individuals to do their best. So in my mindset, I'm working for the customers and I'm working for my team to do their best job. And that is way different than if you're a solopreneur. A solopreneur basically means you have your own business, but you don't work with employees. And that is the reality of a poker player, right? So the level of freedom that I've experienced when it comes to just being a professional poker player, quote unquote, just, it's very challenging, more about that in a moment, is a lot higher than the level of freedom as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you have a lot of responsibilities. You have to, stick to guidelines, deadlines. You have meetings. Again, you have responsibility for other people and their families and them making the best they can do in order to actually serve the ultimate responsibility, which is the responsibility towards your customers. And that is a whole different deal. It is also very appealing, and I really enjoy being an entrepreneur, but it is not the level of freedom you experience that you would have as a successful professional poker player. You will have more flexibility when it comes to where you want to work from. Now, these days, there are some regulations out there, so not all countries are allowing online poker. So you have to shop around and figure, what is the best place to live at. And obviously not everyone is going to be comfortable moving away from their home base because you have your family there or here. You have friends, of course, the whole cultural aspect. You might be more comfortable sticking to the country you're in. And if that country doesn't allow you to play poker / pursue a professional poker career, then you might be in a difficult spot. And then this level of freedom is actually not really as much present as if you are already living in a country that allows online poker, you can stay there. So keep that in mind. It might sound amazing to move to another country to pursue your career as a professional poker player, but I think that a lot of people would prefer to stay where they're at for all the reasons mentioned before. Family, culture, comfort level. You want to stay where you grew up and stuff like that. Now, another reason why you experience a lot of freedom is because you can choose the work hours yourself and optimize your life around it, which means If you are more of a night owl, you can wake up later in the day. If you're more of a morning person, you can wake up earlier. You can structure your day by working 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. But we're going to get to work hours in a moment. Now, most poker players, they work way too much and they don't really choose when to work. They just wake up and grind all day long, go to bed and do that on repeat. I did that for many years. So you might think of, you might look at poker players and think they have all this freedom, they can do whatever they want. But the reality is most poker players, they just play a bunch and that's it. You don't have to do that, by the way. You still have to dedicate a ton of hours to it. But I think a lot of players are not necessarily most effective when it comes to the way they are working, and myself included for many years. You can influence how much you earn by how hard you work and, most importantly, how smart you work. Let's replace this by buy. So if you are in a traditional 9-to-5 career, you might do an excellent job and you might actually earn the company you're working for a ton of money, but they are only going to stick to, market prices. And if you do an amazing job and you ask for a raise, they're going to give you a small raise that doesn't really reflect the amount of value you're adding to the bottom line of the company. And that will almost always be the case in most companies. So you have some influence on how much you're making in other jobs, but sometimes you're also quite limited by the market value of your profession. In poker or when you're an entrepreneur, usually you have more control over your earnings. To a certain degree, you obviously have to be good at it and you have to be effective at what you're doing and you have to be a little bit lucky. But overall, you have more control over that element. And I think a lot of people enjoy that, especially when you're in your 20s or 30s. You have a lot of ambitions. You want to work a lot of hours and you want to get rewarded for that. And usually you will get rewarded more closely to what you actually bring to the table if you are working independently of a boss or a company that will only pay you on market value. Next thing is you can still earn good salaries upwards of $10,000 a month if you are really good at your job. Now, that is also true for other jobs. So just realize that if you're playing poker right now professionally, because obviously some professionals are watching this as well, and they make $5,000 or $10,000 a month, that's great, of course. But just realize other people, there are a lot of jobs that pay that kind of money, especially if you're highly skilled. And a lot of people in poker that play professionally don't make $10,000. So if you're really good at what you're doing, it almost doesn't matter what you're doing. You're going to make a lot of money. And that's also true for poker. It used to be the case that you can make more money in poker than $10,000 a month quite easily. And I would say these days, $10,000 is definitely achievable. If we talk about $20,000, that is a little bit of a different ballpark. It's more difficult for sure, quite a bit more difficult. And that is just based on the stakes that you're able to play and on the softness of those stakes. But more about that later on. This is going to be a pretty long video, man. You better grab a coffee right now. Anyway, also a shout out to me for making such a long video. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Subscribe to the channel. And also, if you guys want me to talk about similar stuff or similar stuff in the future, comment below the video. I'm reading these comments, and I will make decisions based on those comments about the next videos that are coming out. Next up, you don't have to bother with difficult work colleagues. You can build your own network of people around you. That is completely true. If you are an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, you can choose who you're working with. "Quote unquote" choose. They might not want to work with you, but at least you don't have to bother, working with them if you don't want to. Obviously, if you apply for a job, you have your colleagues and you have to learn how to deal with them. You will learn more about yourself and how you work optimally than in many other workplaces or jobs. When to work, how long to work, how to develop discipline and emotional strength. And I think this is one of the most valuable things or biggest advantages when you're turning professional is if you appreciate growing as a person. The lessons that I took, basically the things that I've learned about myself in the last 10 years are completely invaluable. And I don't look at them from a financial standpoint. I look at them from a life quality, life value type of perspective. The lessons I've learned about how I work and what kind of characteristic flaws I bring to the table, and then started working on those, is something that's quite unique to when you are independent. Because when you're independent, you have to self-motivate, you have to become a self-learner, you have to be able to be extremely responsible for your own actions, because if not, you are going to lose your job and your livelihood. So there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of responsibility that you have to grow into. Most people that became professionals in their early 20s. When we think about the last the last 10 years, just like myself. And if you're 22, you don't really understand much about financial responsibility or discipline. You don't understand a lot about how you manage yourself and grow up as an individual. And if you don't learn these lessons, if you don't improve at these areas over the next couple of years, you're not going to make it in poker, essentially. So I really appreciate and I'm very grateful for all the lessons I've learned in the last 10 years, because I was and am a professional poker player. And I'm pretty sure that those lessons are much harder to learn, if at all, in a more traditional 9 to 5 job. You will learn more about how to deal with pressure, financial swings, competitive environments, and making lots of decisions in and off the table. That's also something that's quite interesting about poker, which not everyone is really built for. Poker is a competitive game, which means every day when you go out there, you have to be better than other people, right? It's similar to an athlete. And if you're working in a 9 to 5 job, that's not necessarily the reality, right? You have your responsibilities, and you do a good job at them, but you're not competing all the time against other people who are trying potentially just as hard to beat you. And as you move up in stakes and you start facing primarily professionals yourself, or as yourself, you have that exact spot. You're playing against other professional, just like athletes or soccer players play against each other in a professional match. It's a lot of pressure, and it can really get to you after months and years, and especially when you are in a downswing. You're going to doubt yourself a ton. Every professional poker player is doubting themselves. If not, they're probably broke. There are times where you will think you're the worst. I thought about that myself like all the time. I mean, it happens a ton where you just think, I can't win. I'm the worst. I don't know anything about the game. But you have to wake up the next day and be competitive and be confident and be focused and have clarity in your mind about what you want and how you're going to get there. That's not as present, I would imagine, in normal 9 to 5 jobs. So this extreme competitive environment and high level of responsibility towards yourself is something that's quite unique for poker players, and not everyone is built for it. And I'm not trying to say that not everyone is built for it, so you're like a weaker person or anything like that. It's just people have different skill sets. Some people, for example, they're extremely analytical, right? And they, I don't know, for whatever reason, they become an amazing, I don't know, coder. Okay, let's say a guy becomes an amazing coder, right? Does that mean he's also great at taking responsibility for his career and thinking about all these like competitive environments and emotional strength and how to have financial discipline and so on? No, not necessarily. He might just be a great coder and make a ton of money with that in a company like Google or Facebook or whatever. And that's great. That's a great career right there. But if you're playing poker, you need other skill sets. You need more maybe of like self-management is probably the most important skill set that you should have. And if you have a talent for it in the first place, you probably are likelier to succeed as a poker player. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, let's talk about the ugly, the disadvantages. And those are just some of the disadvantages, right? Those are biased based on my personal experience. And then the advantage is the same thing. So first one is a lot less financial stability than in the 9 to 5 job. That really has to be obvious. If you're playing poker, you will have months where you lose money. You will lose money and you will work very hard and you will be very disciplined and you still lose. That's just the reality of it. So how much you make per month will vary. And that means you need financial discipline in choices such as how much fixed costs you're having, like which apartment you're renting, how much money you're spending, how much money you have left in your bank account, like your bankroll, essentially. Those are a very important aspect to pay attention to, because you can't rely on the next paycheck. And that is a consistent thing that holds through your entire career. Unless you're adding other sources of income, which we're going to talk about later on, your only source of income will be poker. And sometimes it's zero. Sometimes it's actually less than zero. And you're going to lose money on the month. And it requires a good mindset, but also it requires the right expectations heading into it in order to actually handle this. Second, you don't build on a skill set that is worth anything in the marketplace. Now, this might be controversial, especially for people who already have something to lose, aka professional poker players, by making the statement. But a lot of poker players believe, for whatever reason, that they are incredible at anything in life. And if they wouldn't play poker anymore, they would just crush it somewhere else. And I can tell you from personal experience, that is not the case, okay? You don't have a lot of other skill sets than playing poker. You will not get hired by an amazing company that's going to pay you six-figure salaries for a skill set that is just not there. You know, like if you put poker player on your resume, no one is going to clap in their hands and say like, yes, finally we got the poker player signed up on our company. Let's give him six figures. Let's give him the manager position and you're good to go. It's not going to happen. You don't have a lot of valuable skills for the marketplace. That doesn't mean you couldn't build them up also simultaneously while being a poker player. But that requires a lot of discipline and focus and willingness to do that as well. But just realize that if you are a poker player for 10 years, you're probably unhireable basically in jobs that you would accept as far as the intellectual challenge is considered, as well as the salary. And that's just a reality, which means how do you transition out of poker, right? That is a pressuring topic right now for a lot of poker players that are in their 30s and have been doing this for 5 to 10 years, just like myself. It's not that easy to find a way out of poker. And why would you want to find a way out of poker? Well, maybe because you don't want to continuously compete and be in this environment. Maybe you don't want to work as many hours anymore. Maybe you just want to learn something else and something new. And you don't necessarily want to sacrifice your entire life quality / your financial situation. So you're trying to find something that pays equally well that isn't poker. That's pretty difficult to do. Just realize that that's going to be a reality if you're a couple years into poker. But listen, I enjoy the journey. Like for me, I look at poker as a tool that makes me more responsible towards myself, that allows me to build these other skill sets. It allows me to spend more time reading books about business and management and entrepreneurship, about tech. And that's how I'm transitioning, sort of. I mean, I'm not really transitioning out of it because I'm still in the industry and I can still play poker, which is a great combination, of course. But I wouldn't mind to become a full-time entrepreneur at some point. And if you're not that, if you don't want to diverse or even move out of poker at some point into, I don't know, investments or entrepreneurship, or take on another solopreneur career, you might, like if that you're not that type of person and you look for more stability in your career progression, and you think about heading into poker as this is going to be my only career for the rest of my life, it's probably not the thing for you, because poker doesn't bring the stability to the place where you are guaranteed to make a good living out of it for indefinite. And if let's say you're a coder, right, and you bring that skill set to the table, you will still have career opportunities in a company to diverse or move into a slightly different direction and pivot into a new job kind of smoothly. It happens all the time, right? In poker, you are not just going to move from like a professional poker player to X, Y, Z in a smooth transition. It just doesn't happen, right? Because those skills aren't really transferable. So just keep that in mind. You have a lot of responsibility for yourself and your success. So that is a plus and a minus. I take it as a plus at the top because I think because I took on more responsibility, I grew up faster and I learned more about myself in a short time frame than in other professions. But for some people, that level of pressure and responsibility for yourself is just not something that comes natural to them. And it actually disables them from performing at the highest level and being happy. And again, you should identify that about yourself and shouldn't really judge it. It's not like being better or worse. It's just that you should find the optimal sweet spot in your career that suits your natural traits. You start out earning very little per hour. Yes. More about that in a moment. We're going to play a game in a moment that is going to simulate a 24-month progression. Then it might take you 12 to 24 months to start making good at hourly. Now, you might look at this and think, dude, I'm playing poker for 5 years and my hourly sucks. Yes, but also because you probably made a lot of mistakes along the way. Or you might not bring these characteristical traits to the table that I mentioned before. It's not judgmental. I'm just saying that some people are not gonna, like, their best bet as far as career progression is not necessarily playing poker. That's all I'm saying. You have to bring an initial investment to the table. More about that in a moment. Bankroll, tools, coaching, and you are on your own. No colleagues from the start. Might not get the support from your environment, family, and friends. Listen, when I turned 22 or so, I decided I'm going to be a professional poker player. You think that my environment was like, yes, my mother was supportive, but she wasn't like, yes, finally poker player. Yes, let's go. No, of course not. They're thinking of your future, and they want you to do something else potentially. And the thing is, even if your environment is supportive, they, at the end of the day, almost never understand really what poker is all about and what it means to be a professional poker player. So there will be a disconnect most of the time, So a lot of my friends, they actually played poker at some point in their life, even semi-professionally or professionally. But my family, for example, they don't even understand the rules of poker. And I'm cool with that. I'm not pressuring them to learn the rules, and especially of Omaha, which is more difficult. And you have to be potentially okay with that your environment doesn't really understand what you're doing because it's kind of complex. And if they knew you are losing $5,000 last month, especially when you're just starting out, they might think you're a gambler. You're like, this is not a real thing. So there will be a certain disconnect. You need to talk to certain people like your partner, for example, your closest friends, about exactly what it is and why it isn't gambling. And that doesn't come with a normal 9 to 5. You're not applying to Google as a coder and your family is like, how could you do that? This is extremely risky. No, but with poker, it does happen. It will happen for sure. Okay, now we're going to move to another part of this video. What is the best case scenario for turning your passion into a business within the next 24 months? We're going to play a hypothetical scenario, and we're going to use some RNGs. There will be an element of luck involved, or randomness, which is part of your 24-hour month progression. So I talked to someone yesterday who joined the PLO Mastermind, and he said that he didn't really get laid off, but he is, I don't know what the word is in English, but basically he's not going to be able to return to his job for the next 2 years because of COVID. So he will be paid less salary and he will not return to work for 2 years. So in his mind, he was like, I'm going to try to pursue poker in those 2 years professionally while I'm making some money from my job automatically. And that allows me to have time, right? Because he doesn't have to work. And he already has a bankroll because he has worked for most of his life. So I'm going to now point out the most optimal case if we would be able to choose how to bring someone up in the industry and make him a professional poker player. So you start out playing PLO 50 with a $10,000 bankroll. Listen, guys. Don't upload $25 to Stars and start building your bankroll if you are serious about a career. All right? You're just wasting time. You're just wasting time, and you're probably playing in games that are unbeatable as far as rake is considered. And the hourly might be like 50 cents or $2. Come on, guys. Don't you want to... it would make more sense to grind an hourly outside of poker that nets you $20 or $40, $50 or $100, build up a bankroll of $5,000 to $10,000, take that bankroll to poker and start playing reasonable stakes so that you can actually see a progression and move towards an hourly that makes sense as far as your life costs are considered. So if I would be able to choose someone's path, I would say If you're serious about this, take $10,000, and I'm not talking about sell all your shit and be broke and have you have like one shirt left and 10K and you put it into poker. I'm talking about if you are 25, let's say you're 28 years old and you got laid off for 2 years or something like that, and you already have a bankroll, you already saved up some money, let's say $30,000. You take 10,000 of those, put it into your poker bankroll, so to speak, and you start taking it serious. That's what I'm talking about. You have the tools, the coaching, and the growth mindset, which allows you to be reflective and continuously adjust and improve. We already talked about characteristic traits that are beneficial to turn pro or be a successful poker player. And as far as the tools are concerned, we're talking about Hold'em Manager, Poker Tracker, Poker Eat, Hand to Note, whatever tracking tool is helpful, essentially. As far as coaching is concerned, pay for coaching, guys. Just do it, okay? And by coaching, I mean, it could be a coaching program like the PLO Mastermind. It could be something like Raise Your Edge, BBZ, Run It Once, whatever is out there and you think is helpful to you, sign up for it. It's almost always underpriced for the value you're getting if you're serious about it. If you're not serious about it, what's the point in the first place to sign up for coaching? But anyway, if you think you want to turn this into a career, pay for coaching. Pay for the coaching you can afford, essentially. When I started playing poker professionally in 2011, in January of 2011, and I tell the story repetitively, but it's a good story that illustrates the point here. I started with a bankroll of $15,000, and I spent $2,500 on a book called Advanced PLO Theory and Practice by Tom Chambers. That's one book, yes, $2,500. And I spent $2,500 with 10 hours of coaching with Jared Tendler, who is a mental game coach. And you know what? To this day, or I guess I started again, getting coaching by Jared Tendler. So I'm working with him now for many hours already. And that's a whole other story. The point is, I'm spending money on coaching to this day, 10 years later, because there's a ton of value. That's what I'm saying. It's underpriced, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, what do I mean with growth mindset? You appreciate the lessons. You're grateful for sometimes running bad and then learning about your weaknesses. Sometimes the way you learn something in life is by being in a painful situation. So let's say, for example, you're grinding and you lose 10 stacks and you suddenly start developing bad habits because of it. You might play too long. You might sleep not long enough. You wake up the next day, start playing right away. You just stop working out. So, suddenly the spiral's 30 days in and you lose half your bankroll. You look back and you're like, shit, what happened? I need to reflect on this. I need to get coaching. I need to get my shit together. This happened to me personally, like over and over again over the last 10 years. I started with Jared, but then at some point, you start slipping and you start not paying for the coaching anymore and go on your own way, and which is good sometimes, but then you realize that you make massive mistakes, in your life. At some point, I was massively overweight. At some point, I was completely off balance, didn't have any social circle. At some point, I didn't care about sleep. There are a lot of different lessons to be learned, and that I've learned in the last 10 years. And there are many lessons to come, of course. But what I'm talking about is you have to have the mindset to appreciate those lessons and be grateful for it. If you look at a bad thing, quote unquote, as a bad thing, let's say there is, if you look at a downswing as a bad thing only, sort of like as a black or white thing, this is just bad, then you probably don't have the mindset for continuous growth. You need to look at things and say, okay, what is the bad thing about it? What is the good thing about it? Okay, I lost half my bankroll. The bad thing about it is I have to move down in stakes, and I lost a lot of money. What is the good thing about it? Well, it brought up the worst out of me. So I learned about myself that I have these huge characteristic flaws, and now I'm working towards improving them. It actually triggered me to get a coach that helps me to grow faster. Okay, so you have to have a non-binary approach when it comes to events in your life. Okay, you have emotional stability and motivation. Again, self-motivation is a hugely important trait for any solopreneur entrepreneur, any independent person. At PLO 50, you will play your first. Okay, so now we're starting out. You're starting out at PLO 50, you get 10K in your roll, right? And you will play your first 200,000 hands in 4 months at 3 big blinds per 100. Why only at 3 big blinds per 100? Because, you're just starting out, and you will make some mistakes. You will play too long one night. You will tilt off 3 stacks. Things happen, right? 3 big blinds per 100, 4 months. Why 4 months? Well, 50,000 hands per month. Let's say you work 25 days, 2K hands a day, 5 hours. Pretty reasonable to put in 200,000 hands in 4 months. You might say, well, I play a lot more hands in 2 months, and that might be okay. But again, a lot of people, they also play way too many hands comparatively to how much they improve and how much they take care of the rest of their life, right? Going to the gym, sleeping enough, dieting, or having the right diet, caring about social relationships, learning things outside of poker, stuff like that. Okay, so here we are heading into Prime Dope, the variance calculator. And what are we doing here? Well, we're plugging in the 3 big blinds per 100, and we're going to use a standard deviation of 135. If you haven't seen my bankroll, if you haven't seen my poker variance video, then check it out. So 200,000 hands is right here. And we're going to now simulate 20 runs. So these are 20 random runs, right? This is sample number 9. This is sample number 12. This is the best sample here, number 20. And we're going to choose a RNG to decide which run we had, okay? So we're starting for the top, is run number 1, and then we go all the way down to run number 20. So unfortunately, in the first 200,000 hands, we run at number 16. So that is like the 4th worst run. So this is like the worst run ever, 20. This is 19. This is 18. And then we're landing somewhere here, 17, 16. So we won 27 buy-ins. And that's a pretty bad run. We're expected to win, 60 buy-ins, but we only won 27 buy-ins, okay? So we're starting out with $10,000. We won 27 buy-ins. Okay, so that is 27 times 50, right? $1,350. Probably less money than you spent on stuff, but we're going to ignore that for the moment. So your new bankroll is 13,000. What? 13,000. Sorry, 11,350. Wow, things move slow. Okay. Now, should you take a shot at this point to PLO 100? Probably not. The thing is, if you play 200,000 hands, right, and you look at your graph and it says you won 27 buy-ins, your EV big blind per 100 might not reflect 3 big blinds. It might reflect 5 big blinds. It might reflect 1 big blind. It's all possible still. So you don't really get very strong feedback. You only know you won 27 buy-ins, and that's it. You don't really know what that means in terms of your edge in the game. So you probably don't feel overly confident right now. And you probably want to play another, at least 100,000 hands to see like how you're doing, right? So now as you already have 200,000 hands in, you improved, best case scenario, you focused, right? You learned a lot about the game. You actually increased your win rate to 6 big blinds per 100 at PLO 50. And you play 100,000 hands. So we're 4 months in. Again, your bankroll at this point is 11,350. And we run another one. We make another run, right? And you run number 5. Okay, so that's a much better run. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You win almost 11 buy-ins. Is that correct? Yeah. Let me just, I don't want to make a huge mistake. This would be like, wait, this is 200 buy-ins? I think this is 200, but it's actually even a lot more, sorry. I thought it was wrong. So let's say you win 110 buy-ins. So 110 times $50 is like, wow, $5,500. Awesome. You had an awesome run now after in the 5th month or after 5 months now. So we're going to say like that's like 4 months in, 4 months in, right? And now you go from 11,350 plus the $5,500. Okay. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, as you guys can tell. Okay. And also, I'm not good at math in my head, as you can tell as well. Okay. Your bankroll is at $16,850 after 5 months. Cool. I think at this point, most people will take a shot. If your bankroll would have been, let's say, at 12,000, 13,000, maybe you would have said, and that would have been possible, right, based on the run we used in RNG. Then I would have said, well, if your bankroll is at 13,000, maybe 70% of the people would take a shot, and we would use another RNG to determine whether or not you're jumping on PLO 100 or not. But this gets out of the window. You're 5 months in, and you're now going to take a shot at PLO 100. Okay. So, as you're playing PLO 100, your win rate drops to 4 big blinds. We could also go lower, we could go higher, but let's imagine that you're fully focused, you're confident, you're improving at your game, you're 5 months into improvement, you're in the PLO Mastermind if you play PLO, and you are just doing well, okay? Like you're doing well, you're not tilting off too much, and also you become a pretty good player, right? You play maybe also on a good side where you get some decent rake back, the competition isn't too hard. You play now at the 200K, you take a 200K sample. Hopefully we're not going to lose too much. I would say let's just play 100,000 hands first and see how much we're losing potentially. So you play 100,000 hands. Which run is it? Run number 8. So pretty average. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think there's one. 8, sample 8. You win 54 buy-ins, okay? So even I know that that is $5,400 at PLO 100. So here we have a bankroll of 16,850, and you're adding now, what? How much is it? 50. What did we say? 5,400, something like that. Okay. Cool. You're making progress. Things are happening. So far, you had no really bad run. Just realize that as well. Things are going pretty smooth right now. That's a possibility if you're a winner in the game, especially. So this is now... Oh, actually, didn't we play 100,000 hands here? So that would have been 6 months in because we played 2 months. And here we played also another 2 months for 100K hands. So now you're 8 months in and you have a roll of 22,250. Would you take a shot at PLO 200? I would say most people probably would. Let's say 60% of people will take a shot at PLO 200 for, we're just going to play 20K hands, okay? So I'm going to use an RNG first. I'm going to say if the number is going to be between 1 and 6, we're going to take a shot. Otherwise, we will not. So the number is 2. We will take a shot. Exciting times. We're taking a shot. Okay, so we're going to play PLO 200 now. And we're gonna say the competition becomes a little bit stronger. 3 big blinds per 100 for 20,000 hands only. That's our first shot, and we run it. Again, 20 samples. Sample number 6. We're running so good in this video, guys. So good. All of you guys will be just turning pro now because of the good one we had here so far in our 8 months experience. Actually, this is 20,000 hands. That's like 8.5 months. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Somewhere here. Wow, that's a pretty big gap there. Let's say we won. That would be 5 buy-ins. This would be, yeah. Let's say we won like 5 buy-ins. So that would be another $1,000. So we play 20K hands, and we win another, what was that? 5 buy-ins. That would be $1,000. And then we will play another 20,000 hands. Same win rate. Okay. This time 16. So 20. 19, 18, 17, 16. We lose 4.5 buy-ins. So let's say we lose $800 now. So back to 200. So our roll is pretty much the same, right? And now we are 9 months in. And we're like, okay, should we continuously take a shot or move down? Well, I think most people will not be that discouraged. We won 1,000 in the first 20K hands and 800 lost in the second 20,000 hands. We're going to play now a full month of PLO 200 fully focused, okay? Fully focused. So that's, we are now 9 months in our progress here. So we're going to play 50,000 hands, same win rate. We're still struggling a little bit at PLO 200 because the competition is stronger. We are number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like this. 60 buy-ins. Wow, we're so lucky. Okay, so 60 times $200 is $12,000. What? Man, this shot was really worth it. So in our 10th month, we're going to move 22,000. 250. Actually, we won like another 200, right? So this is where our bankroll is. Plus 12,000. We're on top of the world right now, 10 months in. Cool. So that means our total bankroll is 34,450. Now realize, some people have to spend money on their life in 10 months. For the moment, we're going to ignore that. It's going to make things more difficult, of course. Right. Okay, we're 10 months in. Should we take a shot at PLO 400? Not really. I think most people probably wouldn't. We had a great run, but let's try to solidify that and really make our win rate improve at PLO 200. So we work hard. We worked hard. We are very confident. We're going to move to 5 big blinds per 100. We will play another, this time, 100,000 hands at PLO 200, no matter what. Focused. And that's 2 months, right? So, oh, and now I click twice. Doesn't matter. And we run number 3. This is so lucky. 1, 2, 3. You guys can tell it's a pretty lucky run. 115 buy-ins. Man. It's not always going to be that easy, guys. It's not going to be always that easy. But these are the numbers, right? So, month number 11, $23,000. Wow, that's a sick month. Again, that's all part of poker reality. If you're good at the game. Okay. And now our bankroll is going to be $57,450. And at this point, we're like, yes, we will play PLO 400 for not a full month, would be too risky, 25,000 hands. Half a month. Win rate drops to 3 big blinds, 25,000 hands. And we run number 4. Is it? Yeah, it's true. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. We win around 23 stacks. Okay. That is another 9,200. So now we are 1 year in. And our bankroll is at 66,650. That was a really, really lucky year. You saw we had no downswings, which is possible even if your win rate was only between 3 and 6 big blinds, was possible. So after year 1, you're crushing. And now you want to continuously play in PLO 400, let's say PLO 500. Playing Zoom PLO 500, our win rate is 4 big blinds per 100. I'm going to grind in. Like our roll is at 66,000. We're going to grind in like 2 months. So that's like 100,000 hands. That's the first month of the second year, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You win another 69 buy-ins. That would be another $34,500. Again, there are no life expenses here for whatever reason. Just keep that in mind. And also, I miss this thing all the time. Okay, roll at 100K. So this is going to be 13 months in. No, actually 14 months. That were 2 months. Okay, and would we take a shot at PLO 1K? Not really, because the games aren't as available. PLO 500 is still the main stake. And we're going to stick to 4 big blinds for the moment because it's difficult to like increase your win rate at PLO 500 just like that easily. Okay, we will stick to another, let's say 200,000 hands. So that's 4 months. And this time we don't run this well. Number 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12. Somewhere like here, we still won at least 50 buy-ins. I would say 52 buy-ins. So in those 4 months, we make another $26,000. Okay. And we move our roll to 127,000. And that has been 18 months now. Okay, we're almost there. So we're going to do one more run now for another 6 months at PLO 500. That would be 300K hands. And we're going to keep it at 4 big blinds per 100 for the moment. And run 19. Wow. Okay, this will have a brutal ending. Maybe, maybe not. No, there's one really bad run here. But the second worst run is only 14 buy-ins down. So, yep, 14 times 500. This is a bad run, but it didn't happen. 7,000. So in the last, realize in the last 6 months, we lost 7,000, and now I'm just putting it on paper, and you look at the entire bankroll and you're like, whatever, but this hurts. Like emotionally, playing 6 months and losing $7,000 at the end, right? It's not gonna feel great. 6 months without any income. Good. I mean, very lucky we ran good in the first year, but now in the second year, things are a little bit rougher. So our roll then would be 120,000, right? Okay. And we would be on our way to trying to become a regular, essentially, at PLO 500, right? Now, you might look at this and think, this seems like, first of all, we had a good run in the first year. Just realized that, right? You might look at this and say, like, well, I'm playing PLO for a pretty long time, and I'm not at PLO 500, right? And again, that's just because, like, this is the absolute best case scenario, and you have improved in all these different sections. We didn't work with massive win rates. It was just a little bit of a good run. It might take you 3 years. It might take you 4 years of very much being focused to accomplish this state. But now, let's imagine that you are at PLO 500. You end up as you are now a PLO 500 regular. It took 2 years. It could also take 3 years, 4 years. Which means we're playing at a, let's say, 4 big blind win rate, right? And we are logging in 50,000 hands a month. That means our expected return would be 20 buy-ins. So that's like 20 times 500. And what is that? $10,000. So is it possible to make $10,000 in 2020? Yes, it is possible. And that would be one scenario. 4 big blind winner, 50,000 hands a month. There are people that play a lot more hands than 50,000 hands per month, by the way. But let's say you want to focus on quality. You're not a massive winner, but you're a decent winner with 4 big blinds per 100. Also counting rake back to it. Very reasonable. And you make $10,000 a month after all this happened. Now, what could happen? This is another part of the video now. What could happen outside the poker table in those 24 months? Overcoming obstacles. Number 1, you lose motivation for the game. Now, most likely, in year 1, we didn't lose any motivation. We moved up gradually from PLO 50 to, I think, PLO 200, taking shots at 200 already. 400. And it wasn't a difficult time. But what about year number 2? Yes, we had a nice bankroll. Maybe you guys already spent some of it, obviously. But you didn't make any money at the end of the year for 6 months. 6 months, right? That is a very, very rough stretch and tough time. You might lose motivation for the game. Sure, you look back at year 1 and you start doubting yourself. Maybe I'm not good enough for PLO 500. Maybe I'm not as sharp anymore. Maybe I lost my drive. Okay. You end up taking a downswing bat and tilt off a lot of money. Well, maybe you thought you're emotionally stable, but suddenly you start being a minus V player at 500 PLO and you log in 200,000 hands being a 3 big blind loser, it's going to hurt a lot when it comes to your win rate and your money. You might not improve enough, play too much, develop, or bring in bad habits that will make it very unlikely you succeed. This is probably the most important sentence of the entire thing, of the entire video, which is if you don't have your life together, you're probably going to fail. You probably are going to be on a pathway that is very difficult. You will feel a lot of resistance. If you don't understand the value of structure in your day, balance, like you go to the gym, or you at least do some activity, you pay attention to your sleep routine. Actually, I do have this here at the bottom. Let me talk about this in a moment. Your country bans online poker. Happened to me as well. Happened to a lot of people in the US. You didn't pay taxes or saved up for it. Happens to a lot of people. Luckily, it didn't happen to me, but you make money, you start spending it or whatever, and you didn't think about the taxes. Suddenly the tax department reaches out to you. Hey, you owe us $50,000. You owe us $20,000 and you don't have it. Huge problem. You might take a life trip and lose more money than you should. Happens all the time. You go to a life trip, you start looking at all these massive fish and whales, and you think, I can't lose here. Then you lose 20K, but you should have only lost 5. Happens. What are common traps? You don't pay enough attention to your life quality and or professionalism in poker. Bad sleep routine, huge mistake. Not enough workout, huge mistake. Unhealthy diet, huge mistake. Not enough time off, huge mistakes. And no other hobbies, interest in learning than poker. Again, print this out or whatever and focus on this shit, guys. This is so important. I made these mistakes for years and many people still make them. But it's going to slow you down. It's not the way to go about it if you are a solopreneur, if you're a professional poker player. You got to get your stuff together. It doesn't mean you need to eat chicken and rice and broccoli every day. It just means that you have a good and basic understanding of what makes you be focused, what is helpful, what isn't helpful, and then have a balance of it. You can have wine, you can have dinners out, you can have party nights, whatever, as long as you balance it in a way where your life quality and your professionalism in poker is not jeopardized. Overspending outside of poker because of a recent upswing. You won 20K, in one of the months we won like 20K. You're thinking to yourself, dude, I need like new furniture. I need a new car. I need to spend this money. Suddenly the next 6 months, you don't make any money. It happened. It did happen to us in year number 2, right? Didn't make any money for 6 months. You look back at the car you just bought and think, why the hell did I buy this car? You might start staking a friend and lose money or get scammed. Happens all the time. You might start playing in games you can't beat. You get raked shit out of yourself in certain apps. You get scammed, which means like you let's say you deposit on an app, don't get paid out. You get colluded, never know about it. Taking shots at too many higher stakes tournaments. You might think to yourself, well, I got a roll of $100,000. I'm going to play these 1Ks now. Suddenly you're down 15K quick. Suddenly you lose motivation. Suddenly you're playing bigger tournaments, bigger cash games, and so on. It can all spiral essentially. If you're not focused, you don't have your shit together. Closing thoughts, general tips. Becoming a professional poker player is possible, but challenging in 2020. If you appreciate the journey, accept the downsides, and have a lot of passion for the game, it could work out for you. Doesn't have to. You also have to be a little bit lucky on the run. But if you bring the right mindset to the table, you could make it happen. Number 3, if you have life leaks, which refers to characteristic flaws that reflects in your habits, approach, mindset, and attitude, you will have a very hard time making it. And also, you're going to sacrifice a lot of stuff. I sacrifice relationships, my health, social environments. I sacrifice a ton of learning opportunities, a ton of stuff, financial stuff, progression, happiness. I sacrificed all these things in the past because I didn't have my shit together. That's why it also makes sense to hire professionals around you that support you. Start working on yourself as a person and professional. It's the most important skill set. Get help from whoever you can afford. Training programs, mental coach, dietitian, a fitness trainer, and so on. Do not start out with a small bankroll. Bring money outside of poker into the game and start taking it serious from day one. And that's it, guys. And this is obviously a nerdy video, but I think this is the type of content that I can provide with my 10 years of experience that has a lot more value than highlights and making Twitch streams. I want to make videos like this more often. If you like them, click the like button or the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment about what topic you want me to see cover in the future. And obviously spread the word. Share this to whoever you think is going to be helped by it. And that would also help me on my journey to turn more people into professional poker players in 2020, which again is possible and is also worthwhile for some individuals. But I just want to spread as much transparency about it as I can. All right, guys, this is going to close down the video. If you want to learn more about this whole bankroll thing and variance and whatever, then check out the video I did recently also on my channel about how the poker variance calculator actually works and what it means and so on. I talked about all these different elements of it that you can also visit at primedope.com. If you guys like to improve your PLO game, then check out the PLO Mastermind.com. This is our training site where we teach Pot Limit Omaha. And by we, I'm talking about myself, Scholler, Suapix, Luke. You can learn more about what it is all about, of course, at PLOmastermind.com. I'm out, guys. Take care. GG.